Welcome back, Astro listeners, to Star Lady Soul Reader Network. This is your host, Media Monk, and as usual, I have our shining star of the zodiac, Star Lady. Hi, Star Lady.
Hello, Media Monk.
And we all know Star Lady is indeed Kim Marie, the managing director for our network, and we continue to certify new evolutionary astrologers here. And yet we have a website there with a lot of materials just for your next level of soul growth through EA. So go to www.evolutionaryastrology.net. Always call 1-605-348-5111 to schedule your private session with Star Lady and or to ask any questions about the EA course or anything on the website. All right, well, we moving right along here now and to the end of the calendar year. We have the little Sag energy coming up, so I'll turn it over to you. Welcome, everybody.
A little thanks, Media Monk. A little Sag energy, and yes, I've already been prepping the next Mercury retrograde dates because Mercury's going to go into pre-shadow the end of November already for its next busy retrograde cycle, the end of the year. We'll look at that in a little bit, but first of all, thank you, everyone, to our New Moon podcast. The New Moon's going to be November 13th, coming up here next Monday, and the New Moon is going to be at about 21 degrees Scorpio, making oppositions to Uranus retrograde in Taurus, and then right after that New Moon, on November 18th, the Sun's going to have its conjunction with Mars, which it does once every 2 years, at 25.5 degrees Scorpio. So while we have moved on from our eclipses in Libra Scorpio, we are still in the midst of some real strong Scorpio energy right now. And Mars, just for some dates here, makes its opposition to Uranus retrograde just before the new moon. It's actually happening today, November 11th, the day we are recording this podcast. Mars opposed Uranus at 21 Scorpio Taurus. Bear with me. I happen to like Scorpio energy because I have Sun in Scorpio, and I have Mercury, Moon, and Neptune, and North Node in Midheaven in Scorpio. So this is kind of Star Lady's time of the year. I love fall. I love the Scorpio energy. However, it is not always peaceful everywhere on the planet. You know, evolutionary astrology is based upon the planet Pluto, which rules Scorpio, 8th house, as representative of our souls. And so this archetype, Pluto, Scorpio, 8th house, representing our souls, represents it on an individual basis. It represents it on a collective basis, wherever Pluto is transiting by sign. And it represents our dual desire nature on a soul basis. That desire to separate from that which created it. I exist, I am, I desire a lover, a job, a home, a career, children, whatever we desire. And we go through countless lifetimes exhausting those separating desires, hopefully expanding in consciousness along the way until we start to want to know, why am I here? What does all this mean? And it represents that returning desire out of our dual desire nature, in which we want to understand larger energies and forces on the universe, eventually becoming the only desire left, which is the desire to know source, to know creator, to know divine intelligence, whatever your language for it is. And so this is the time period through this annual solar cycle of Sun in Scorpio in which these dual desires become more focused, become more clear for us. What desires have we exhausted? They no longer serve us. We release them. We let them go. And what replaces the newly emerging desires in our consciousness? And this is also where we go back and forth, separate and return, exclude, include, we could almost say from that evolutionary astrology perspective. And all we have to do is look out there on planet Earth on a more broad collective level, and we can see that desire to separate, that desire to exclude, that desire to power over somebody, something, somewhere, is alive and well on the planet right now. And we call it that consensus world where I must power over you in order for me to be safe. When really the natural law perspective of that archetype of Scorpio is when I merge and power with you. We both evolve, we both survive, we both metamorphose into more than we were alone. It's that biblical saying, wherever two or more are gathered, there's an energy of that collective. And so I'm probably preaching to the choir here. But how long do we go, me versus you and us versus them, until we realize on planet Earth that when we take care of the least of us, we take care of all of us. And we all survive. We all are better. And so this is the great dilemma between the archetype of Scorpio merging with that which we perceive to be more powerful than us, to then osmosis that energy into us, versus Taurus polarity, which in its distortions is insecurity, and I've got to have the outer security in order to feel safe, versus that evolving Taurian energy, which goes towards inner security, which allows us to then go through those Scorpio metamorphoses together, and then we all come back to a sense of ourself in greater inner security, Taurus, as we live in this evolving, changing world. I live in the northern plains of the United States, so does Media Monk. We live in a small mountain range east of the Rockies. And I read a very nice article this morning about a United States federal program that was initiated last year in 2022 about working with ranchers and farmers in the state of Wyoming on the eastern foothills of the Rocky Mountains that go up and down the North American continent. Anyway, this is a new program. It's a new conservation program of working with farmers and ranchers and helping them. Literally, there are conservation programs that pay farmers to protect sensitive areas in my state, South Dakota. But now this one is happening in Wyoming, and next year, 24, it's going to expand into Montana and Iowa, where they are literally paying farmers and ranchers to remove fences to conserve sensitive feeding areas of mammals, the ungulates. In other words, the deer and the elk and the antelope, as they do their summer to winter migration routes north and south. And the one little sentence that really stuck out for me on this article is, animals, nature, they don't know our human-made boundaries. They go with the natural laws and principles. And so I thought, well, how beautiful that we literally have, one of the most conservative states in the country is Wyoming. If you follow any politics, you'll be very familiar with the Cheney family and how Liz lost, extremes of being a representative in Congress last year. But we have these farmers and ranchers recognizing a real meaning to conserve, meaning to work with nature rather than try to have dominion over it, which is Scorpio. And that power over, dominion over nature versus merging with nature, so we all can have some of that Taurian survivalism. And so this is what we can recognize on intimate levels with this new moon. And Mars sitting there initiating a brand new 2-year cycle with the sun. Whether this is happening to us on an intimate level, through marriage, through divorce, through working with conserving land, to working to realize that all peoples on the planet have a right to survive on land where they live versus pushing them out. We are watching this happen with Ukraine and Russia. We are watching this happen with Israel and the Palestinians. And I'm not trying to choose sides here at all. I'm just raising that Scorpio point that we have to learn how to merge with others in order to Taurian survive again. So one more time for you. Here's some of here's those dates I rattled off. First of all, today on this podcast, Mars opposed Uranus November 11th at 21 degrees, Scorpio, Taurus. These are two powerhouses of war. So who knows what may be in the news? Or could we possibly have some type of humanitarian ceasefires, which have been taking place in the last couple of days, allowing Palestinian citizens to move away from the war places that Israel is, moving through in Gaza. I will tell. We have then that new moon coming up here, November 13th at 21 Scorpio. And then the sun on that same day opposes Uranus at 21 Scorpio, Taurus. Again, we can see the extremes of hurting each other. Let's pray and energize that we can see learning how to merge with each other so that all of us can be saved. And then November 18th, we will have Sun conjunct Mars at 25.5 Scorpio again. Their last conjunction 2 years ago was in October of 2021 when they initiated a conjunction at 15 degrees Libra, which ironically is right about that time period last month in early October where we had the war break out between Israel and the Hamas. And so now as we initiate this new 2-year Mars-Sun cycle that's taking place in late Scorpio again, can we intend, can we move towards finding a new peace for all of us on this planet? I mean, the news has come out that the last 12 months have been the hottest on record, the hottest 12-month period on record. The researchers think, who keep track of temperatures, they think we've had the hottest 12 months in the last 125,000 years. And there's been news recently that we're going to have that 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in average temperatures since the industrial age started in the 1700s. We might be reaching that faster, sooner than we think, which is what the scientists call the point of no return. Well, thank goodness for the Pluto and Scorpio generation, because they're the recyclers of the zodiac. I'm not going to go for the doomsday scenario. You know, humanity keeps having children, and the children coming in, especially these little Pluto and Aquariuses that are going to come in here soon, they're like, we're going to figure out the technology to survive because we don't have any choice. And by the way, also, in the midst of all this, late last month we had Mercury conjunct Mars. We were talking about that the end of the month, about 12 degrees Scorpio. Well, here's what we're going to have happen with this Mercury retrograde cycle coming up in Capricorn Sag here the end of the year into January. Mercury's going to make 3 conjunctions to Mars. 1 in Scorpio, 1 in Sag, and 1 in Capricorn over the next 2 months. And so the Mercury Mars conjunction at 12 Scorpio late last month was kind of like this deep, Scorpio is fixed water. And so we hold on to an emotional homeostasis until sooner or later we say evolving forces overcome resisting forces. And what it can lead to is, with that fixed modality, fixed water, fixed emotions, sooner or later the dam breaks, and it may evolve, it may not evolve when you look at the war in the Middle East breaking out. But what it represents is sooner or later Scorpio, it's the volcano, it's the earthquake, the pressure's too much, something has to build up and break away. And so Scorpio is the archetype of confrontation, confronting where we're stuck, confronting how we have to look at something differently. And so this can be what 3 times Mercury conjunct Mars might bring for us in Scorpio, Sag, and Capricorn. We had Mercury go into Sagittarius November 10th through December 1st. We're going to have the Sun go into Sag for its solar month, November 22nd. And then we're going to have Mars go into Sagittarius November 24th through January 4th. And the mantra that I created a long, long time ago for Sagittarius, I understand the relativity of truth with others. I understand the relativity of truth with others. Let me back up and give you that Scorpio mantra one more time. I metamorphose myself with evolving self-reliance. I metamorphose myself, the Scorpio confrontation eruption, myself, with evolving self-reliance, that Taurian inner security, inner relying on myself. Now we move into Sagittarius. I understand the relativity, Gemini, of truth, Gemini Sag, with others. Gemini and Sag again. And so we're going to move from these scorpionic explosions and traumas, square Aquarius, upsets, into the Sagittarian energy that says, wait a minute, what's the broader picture here? What's really going on here? And that's hopefully what we will start to see evolving over in the Middle East. We can't just keep bombing each other, killing each other. I really do think that there are enough people on planet Earth with all of our technological interactions with each other that are starting to say, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. We have got to figure out ways for all of us to live in peace because we've got more important issues on the planet, which is natural law, nature, climate change, Sagittarius archetypes and themes. We've got more important things to do. We've got more important places to put our energy. Join me in energizing this to be true. The Sagittarius is the truth seeker. Yes, we have what myself and EA tends to say, excluding principles, taking, hoarding, excluding, versus including principles, giving, sharing, including. We have two ways of looking at things that, entrenches in what we perceive to be truth. But as EA has said for a long, long time, ever since Jeffrey Wilkgreen received this in dreams 4 decades ago, you can suppress the truth or natural law. You can distort the truth or natural law. However, you cannot destroy truth and natural law. Mama Nature will have the last word one way or another. Might not be too comfortable here in the upcoming decades, hundreds of years, but she's going to have the last word. And so the other aspect that I want to bring into the conversation is Saturn went stationary direct earlier this month, November 4th at 0.5 Pisces, finished up a 4-month retrograde cycle, its first one out of 2.5 in Pisces. And so Saturn is now making the third and final waning semi-square to Chiron retrograde in Aries. From the highlight of 7 planets retrograde in, I think it was August, we're down to only 4 planets retrograde now, Jupiter, Chiron, Uranus, and Neptune. And so Saturn is making a 315-degree aspect to Chiron, making Chiron the starting point. And a waning semi-sextile is balsamic phase. And so I think there's this part of Saturn direct in Pisces interacting with all the woundedness that Chiron in Aries is watching and saying, how do we heal? How do we heal? How do we bring about a new reality on the planet that allows us to actually, survive, to be real with ourselves? Saturn in Pisces, my little phrase is, we all get a reality check. The Neptunian bubbles are bursting. Where is reality for you? How is it working for you? And if it's not, wherever it's not, maybe some ways are working and some ways are not, wherever it's not working, reality in your life, Saturn is asking Chiron, balsamic phase, surrendering to Chiron and saying, well, what are the new healings I must initiate within myself? What are the new healing modalities I must initiate within myself? We're dealing with Chiron here, so this can, yes, include diet, exercise, and rest. There are those who feel that Chiron has rulership of Virgo. Let's see where, the majority opinion of astrology goes as we expand our solar system and universe and astrology. Observe, correlate, as EA says. But Saturn in that balsamic phase to Chiron, they won't have a conjunction, by the way, till they'll have one in 2028 at 7 Taurus. Survivalism? The point where Jupiter retrograde is right now, everybody, or just real close to it. But that Saturn balsamic to Chiron, what are the new ways that I wish to initiate with healing? Personally for myself and collectively with others. As we look at all of this, Libran split, me versus you, and, us versus them that we're seeing going on. And, we probably have this, Palestine versus Israel outburst taking place in multiple countries all over the planet. It's a little more murky than Ukraine supporting itself with Russia. Support might be a little different in those ways, but it's still same general themes. So we're looking at this collectively and personally. Again, I'm just going to share. I have another little interesting tidbit for you. I hope you're okay, Medium Monk. I'm going to tell everybody that you had a minor back surgery at the beginning of the month. We had to fuse L4, L5. The multi-decade baseball player, I had to kind of heal that disc area with the bone scars and whatever. And what was interesting, Saturn Chiron story, is that through the whole process with, mainly the nurses and support staff, pre-surgery, post-surgery, it was the most interesting conversations between the traditional medical drugs that were necessary to deal with the pain coming out of surgery, and we're still moving through, letting those go. But the most interesting parts of that story with me pre and post surgery was the amount of information that nurses were sharing on a natural, nutritious level. This supplement, this herb, that herb. Just before Medium Monk went into surgery at the bejeebies crack of dawn, I really got to see Venus as the morning star, everybody. I missed the conjunction with the moon a couple days ago, but I did get to see Venus as morning star for several days in a row to and from hospital. Anyway, there was a nurse as we were getting ready for pre-op who had seen Medium Monks, they call it the medical list of everything you take. Well, first of all, everybody had to note that I'm going to give them your age too, Medium Monk. This 67-year-old is on no medical prescriptions. But there's a whole list of vitamins and minerals and herbs. Star Lady, I have long time been into herbs. I used to tincture my own herbs in my 30s. Medium Monk was one of my customers of my tinctures in the 30s, when we were both in our 30s, excuse me. Anyway, the nurse had constipation issues, and so she was asking us about our different herbs. And first of all, she wanted to know about cat's claw, and she says, please tell me that you don't declaw cats, and that's a supplement. Because she loves kitties. No, we had a good kitty conversation. And I'm like, no. Cat's claw is a vine in South America, and its roots claw into the trees that it lives off of symbiotically. And so that bark, or that vine, is what cat's claw is. And it's a very good immune system herb, by the way, for anybody who's interested in that. So then I was reviewing the herbology, and I said, so the herb for one of the natural herbs for constipation that is much more gentle than senna, okay? And by the way, the nurses post-op said, you need to go get yourself some senna for constipation with all the pain medications. But I said Polydarchio is a fantastic herb for supporting the immune system, and it is a very gentle laxative. And so, point is, Saturn waiting semi-square to Chiron, and Saturn in Pisces, the ultimate, what was the nurse that everybody, Florence Nightingale, so here was this back and forth that we were doing with nurses, including nurses giving us some ideas with supplements and coconut oil. I knew this, but it wasn't in my consciousness, and so coconut oil is Media Monk has been helping me with this word, antimicrobial, something like that.
Microbial, yeah.
Antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial. And there was a recommendation for an area where Media Monk had an owie that, coconut oil and helping it heal and keeping out infection. You get the point here with Saturn waning semi-square Chiron. For us, this was a little personal story, but you understand, how can I heal? What are the new initiations I can make? And for me, it was watching this traditional medical world interface with us two alternative people with all our alternative stuff, and nobody judged each other. And everybody was saying, well, here's how the natural can help the medical, and here's how the medical can help, until the natural can take over again. Get my point? Thank you for allowing me to be long-winded. Mars is going to make a last quarter square to Saturn, November 25th. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. At 1 degree Sag, 1 degree Pisces, just before the full moon. So maybe that will be some surrender into broader awarenesses. That same day, Mars makes a waning sesquisquadrate, square and a half to Chiron. Mars is going to touch into that Saturn-Chiron aspect. Same day, November 25th, as Saturn-Chiron has their aspect. And Mars will be at 1 Sagittarius, while Chiron is at 16 degrees Aries. And so as Mars moves into Sagittarius, again, November 24th through January 4th, may the warrior search for truth. And may the Mars warrior, ruler of Chiron to Aries, really search for nonviolent truth and search for healing truth. And may enough of us collectively on the planet choose to participate that way. All right, Media Monk, I will slow down. Take a deep breath. Thank you, everyone.
Yep. And thank you for doing the research again. Yeah, we are kind of at this crossroads between the depths of the Scorpio cleansing that I've seemed to have had with this surgery. It seems like a breath of fresh air to have a little Sag energy on the horizon. So again, continue to move with joy and lots of passion on this ever-changing journey and shifting journey to the core of our souls. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.